On their wedding day, Kwame Nkrumah's marriage to Amina Dlamini did not start out the way he imagined. She chose to spend their wedding night with another man. At that time, Kwame should have been filled with anger, doubt, and even indignation. However, surprisingly, he was not. Instead, he chose tolerance and understanding. To Kwame, Amina's happiness far outweighed any of his own feelings. There seems to be a tacit understanding between them, without words, but they understand each other. Amina can freely choose her lifestyle, and Kwame only needs to endure it quietly. 3 years, a full 3 years, Kwame completed his mission and the mission assigned to him by the system. He also fulfilled his tolerance for Amina without any complaints. And what about Amina? She still lives in her own world, enjoying the freedom and satisfaction she pursues. She is unaware of Kwame's inner pain and forbearance. The years passed quietly, and everything seemed to be moving slowly along a long-set trajectory, eventually heading towards a destined ending. Now, 3 years have passed, Kwame's mission is complete, and he is ready to leave. Just as he turned around, Amina suddenly cried and tried to keep him. "Do you really not like me? Then what are these 3 years for?" Kwame smiled slightly, but there was a hint of coldness in his heart. He smiled lightly, but a silent mockery surged in his heart. He thought to himself, "These 3 years? What? It's just the limit of what he can endure, a game that is destined to have no results." People around him say that Kwame Nkrumah is just a licker of Amina Dlamini, and lickers often end up with nothing. But Kwame is different. He is a lucky licker. He got what he wanted, married Amina Dlamini. Even on their wedding day, Amina Dlamini was still flirting with her lover. Although Amina Dlamini was late for the wedding and the banquet was postponed because of that man. Although Amina Dlamini used their marriage bed to sleep with another man. This was not the first time. Kwame glanced at the man lying next to Amina. The man had fair skin and looked a little timid. His clothes were not completely taken off, but his face was covered with Amina's lipstick marks. Kwame remained calm, picked up the pillow that had fallen on the ground, and said to Amina Dlamini, "I'm going to buy some food. If you're okay, you can eat at home later." Amina stretched lazily, then handed some money to the pretty boy and waved her hand to send him away. "I want to eat scrambled eggs with tomatoes." Amina came over, hugged Kwame from behind, and said coquettishly, "Feed me." Kwame didn't really understand. Two people huddled in bed, clothes neatly wrapped, just to chat? But Kwame didn't bother to find out if there were any special fetishes between Amina and her lover, because he didn't care at all. This is not because Kwame loves Amina so much that he can tolerate her sharing her body with other men. Only a fool would do that. He just feels that what Amina Dlamini does has nothing to do with him. Amina is nothing to Kwame. At the dinner table, Amina said to Kwame while eating, "Zuri Kofi is sick. I plan to go see him. I can't spend your birthday with you this weekend." Zuri Kofi was Amina's childhood neighbor, and they had been childhood sweethearts. The various men that Amina brought back might have been just for the sake of novelty, but for Zuri Kofi, she was really serious. Zuri has been sickly since childhood. Once he was sick, he would not recover for several days. Amina stayed with him every day, always saying that she was his sister and that she had to protect him well. However, as time went by, Amina no longer allowed Zuri to call her sister Mengshu. She always said with a smile, "It makes me look old." Zuri smiled innocently, touched Amina's head, and jokingly called her sister Mengshu. Their relationship had always been enviable, as if her husband should be Zuri, not Kwame. "You can't come back at night?" Kwame asked. Amina was silent for a while, then shook her head gently. "I may not be able to make it back in time." "Oh," Kwame responded, "then be careful on the road." Amina frowned slightly when she heard his response. So generous? It was the first time Kwame saw Amina showing some emotion. Amina usually seemed determined to do everything and always acted frivolously, but this time, she seemed a little unhappy and a little dissatisfied with Kwame's answer. Kwame considers himself a perfect husband who tries his best to love her, tolerate her, and do his best to be worthy of her. However, deep down, he also has his own selfish desires. Kwame is willing to be Amina's licker just because he is bound to a system. If he does not do what the system requires, he will die. 3 years. When Kwame has licked Amina for 3 years and completed the system's task, the system will set him free. Today is the last day of the second year's task. Kwame Nkrumah looked at the sullen Amina Dlamini in front of him, thinking that he was finally going to be free, and couldn't help laughing out loud. Kwame quickly responded, "Isn't it good for me to be more generous? Don't you like it? If you think what I have done is not enough, then I can be more generous." "How generous?" "Divorce and let you and Zuri Kofi be together. Is that enough?" Amina Dlamini slammed the spoon that was about to reach her mouth to the ground, and suddenly she was furious. "Kwame Nkrumah, what are you crazy about?" Kwame was a little confused. He quietly picked up the dropped spoon and asked calmly, "Are you in a bad mood today? Did something happen?" Amina looked at Kwame suspiciously and said, "Kwame Nkrumah, If you have any complaints about me, you can tell me directly. If you are angry because I can't spend your birthday with you this weekend, I can wait until next week to give you a birthday party alone. But it's really boring that you are like this all of a sudden." Kwame's heart tightened. Like this? What was he like? For more than 2 years, Amina had never lost her temper with Kwame. Because he had always tolerated her and had always been magnanimous, Amina seemed to be very satisfied with his attitude. However, today, Amina suddenly lost control of her emotions, and Kwame felt a little puzzled. He felt that he had tried his best to be generous, so why was she still not satisfied? But Kwame knew that he had to endure it. There was only 1 day left, and he couldn't let 2 years of hard work go to waste because of such a small matter. So Kwame walked up to Amina, kissed her forehead devoutly, and hugged her tightly in his arms. "I just want you to be happy, even if I'm just a spare tire. You and Zuri Kofi spend a good weekend. I won't argue with you. Don't worry." However, Amina did not calm down. She pushed Kwame away and sneered. "It's been 2 years, Kwame Nkrumah, and you are still the same. You haven't made any progress at all." Then she slammed the door and walked out. Kwame knew that Amina must have gone to Zuri for comfort, but he didn't care. The next day was Kwame's birthday, and Amina should still be at Zuri's house. After 3 years, Kwame finally made it. The system reminded him that his mission was completed, and it would not let him die again, and also gave him some rewards. After Amina got married, she never celebrated Kwame's birthday with him. On her first birthday, Amina declined Kwame's birthday invitation on the grounds that she was busy at work. At that time, Kwame still had a glimmer of hope in his heart that Amina might really be too busy. After all, they were husband and wife, so he decided to go to her company to see her. As a result, when Kwame pushed open the office door, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Amina's assistant was pressing her on the table, and her clothes were in disarray. On her second birthday, Amina said she was too tired and wanted to go out to relax, so she called several pretty boys to go to KTV that night and did not go home the whole night. It was not until 2 a.m. that Amina called Kwame and asked him to pick her up. On the way back, Amina kept asking, "Kwame Nkrumah, aren't you jealous when I go out drinking and singing with others?" Kwame calmly responded, "You're married to me, that's enough." Amina curled her lips. "Kwame Nkrumah, you are so generous, you know that?" Kwame just glanced at Amina and said nothing. Amina continued, "But it's okay this way. I'll find someone else, but you'll always be in my heart. Kwame Nkrumah, you have to always love me." After saying that, she fell asleep. It's the third birthday today. In order to take care of the sixery, Amina not only had a big fight with Kwame for no apparent reason yesterday, but also lost contact with him today and directly blocked Kwame's phone number. Kwame was panicking and looked everywhere for Amina. On his third birthday, Amina finally decided that he would prepare a satisfactory gift for himself today. He wanted to get a divorce. Kwame Nkrumah remembered the address of Zuri's house because Amina Dlamini had taken him there before. It seemed that there was a time when Zuri had a fever and Amina said she wanted to go and accompany him and brought Kwame along. Kwame didn't want to go at first, but he couldn't persuade Amina, so he went with her in the end. Zuri doesn't like Kwame very much. Although Kwame tries his best to be generous and caring, Zuri just ignores Kwame. In this case, Kwame didn't want to continue to try to please others, so he ran to the balcony to smoke. Not long after, Amina ran over and questioned Kwame. "Why are you slacking off here? Zuri has a fever. Can't you be more sensible and get him a basin of water to wipe his body? At least pour him a glass of water." Kwame thought, this is Amina's man. Why should he serve her? But he just complained silently in his heart and didn't dare to say it out loud. Kwame put out his cigarette and smiled at Amina. "Got it. I'll be there right away." Amina frowned at first, then glared at Kwame. "I'm holding you responsible for not taking good care of him." Kwame cooked porridge for Zuri, wiped her body, and did housework until midnight. Amina had already gone to bed in the next room. Kwame poured another basin of water for Zuri. "Wipe yourself off." Zuri impatiently knocked over the basin of water Kwame had brought, spilling the water all over the bed. "So earnest? Kwame Nkrumah, you live such a miserable life." Kwame couldn't help but sneer, thinking, a mere mistress dared to insult her husband. But Kwame's goal was never to win favor, but just to survive, and he didn't care about anything else. Kwame spread his hands. "Why, are you jealous that I'm willing to work hard?" Zuri didn't say anything, just looked out the window. It was dark at night, and he couldn't see anything. No one knew what he was looking at. Suddenly, Zuri jumped off the bed and shook off the water on her body. She didn't look sick at all. "I've never seen your strategy to win women. Do you think Amina will like you if you show hard work, tolerance, and understanding? Don't be delusional." Kwame sighed and picked up the basin. "Brother, I really don't have the time to argue with you. If you like, wait 3 years. After 3 years, I will divorce her." Zuri wanted to say something else, but the sound of the basin being overturned startled Amina. Amina rushed over and saw the bed was wet. Without saying a word, she slapped Kwame in the face. "Kwame Nkrumah, are you childish? How dare you bully a sick person? Zuri smiled smugly and then went to pull Amina's arm. Amina, don't do this. Nkrumah was careless. It's also my fault that I didn't have time to help. Kwame saw for the first time what a male green tea was like. He dragged out the soaked sheets and mopped up the water on the floor. It was my mistake. I won't do it again next time. However, Amina did not seem to be relieved. She grabbed Kwame's collar and dragged him to her room. She looked at him with her arms folded across her chest and said, I brought you to Zuri's house and asked you to take care of him. Are you upset with me? No, you're overthinking it. Kwame shook his head. Kwame Nkrumah, you are unreasonable. That night, Amina kicked Kwame out. It was raining outside, and Kwame's cell phone and car keys were still at Zuri's house. It was the middle of the night, and he couldn't get a taxi. Kwame had no choice but to sit at the door all night. The next morning, Amina opened the door and saw Kwame. She kicked him a few times in disgust, saying that he was dirty and didn't want him to ride back with her. She threw Kwame's phone to him and asked him to take a taxi home. Kwame had a cold and a fever after being in the rain all night, so he left in a daze. He couldn't hear what Amina said, so he staggered away with his phone in his hand. After returning home, Kwame took a hot bath and went to the hospital for an injection and medication. Amina came back in the evening, but she didn't say a word of concern. She just said lightly, when you get better, go and cook. Otherwise, what are you doing? The past flooded into Kwame Nkrumah's mind, and before he knew it, he was standing at the doorstep of Zuri Kofi's house. Kwame rang the doorbell several times, but there was no response. Kwame rang the doorbell again, and the door finally opened. Amina Dlamini appeared at the door in a silk suspender nightgown. Kwame Nkrumah? Amina frowned almost invisibly and asked impatiently, what are you doing here? Come to get a divorce. Kwame smiled faintly and his voice was calm. What are you doing? I don't want to play house with you. Amina Dlamini said and prepared to close the door. Kwame blocked the door with his foot and said patiently, I'm not messing around. It's just a signature. It won't take more than a few minutes. Amina Dlamini obviously didn't want to pay attention to Kwame, and Zuri Kofi happened to come over. Meshu, who rang the doorbell just now? Zuri asked as he walked into the house. When he saw Kwame, his face suddenly turned pale. He was obviously worried that Kwame would come and snatch Amina Dlamini away, right? Kwame Nkrumah? You're here. Zuri rubbed his temples. His irritation and anxiety were obvious. What are you doing here? Amina is staying with me for a few days. Kwame gave Zuri his signature grin. Hey, old friend. I've come to fulfill my promise. What? Zuri was stunned, with a blank expression. Have you forgotten? I said before that if you like Amina, I will divorce you in 3 years. So, I brought the divorce agreement. If you want, you can go and get the certificate today. Kwame replied with a smile. What's going on? It doesn't make sense. Amina Dlamini pushed Kwame away angrily. Kwame Nkrumah, you have satisfied me for the past 3 years. Why have you suddenly become so ridiculous in the past few days? Are you still as bad as before? Like before? Amina Dlamini, are you kidding me? Are you going to treat me like a dog like before? Kwame sneered in response. It's such a waste of time talking to you. Amina Dlamini angrily snatched the divorce agreement from Kwame's hand. You want a divorce, right? I'll sign it, but don't regret it later. Even if you beg me on your knees, I won't pity you again. Although Amina's words were infuriating, she did sign the divorce agreement and handed it to Kwame, who happily prepared to leave. However, Zuri Kofi suddenly grabbed his hand and said with a fake smile, Today is my birthday, let's have a meal together before leaving. Amina Dlamini was shocked and Kwame saw a hint of displeasure on her face. Kwame knew that Zuri was just showing off to him. But what can Zuri brag about? Even if he is with Amina Dlamini now, he can never compare with Kwame because Kwame and Amina are married and Zuri is just a mistress who is not allowed to see the light of day. Zuri thought Kwame would be hit. He thought he won. But Kwame didn't take the game seriously at all. There's no point in talking anymore. Kwame was too lazy to argue with them anymore. My most important thing now is to use my savings to buy a house somewhere else, away from you, and start a new life. No. Happy birthday to you, and have a great time. Kwame pushed Zuri's hand away and left without looking back. After returning home, Kwame packed his things and did not rest for a moment. He wanted to leave this place so badly. This place was a piece of shit to him. Whoever wanted to stay here could stay. As for Amina Dlamini, whoever wanted to serve her could serve her. Kwame booked the earliest flight to Johannesburg. As soon as he got off the plane, he went straight to the agency to look at the house. Kwame bought a house, a car, and went to bars and KTVs, living a very cool life. When Kwame got home at night, he opened his phone and saw 2 missed calls from Amina Dlamini and a WeChat message. Why didn't you answer my call? There should be a limit to your nonsense, right? Kwame didn't care and directly deleted Amina's contact information and blocked her phone number. Kwame had waited for this moment for a long time. In the past, he worked hard at home and Amina often stayed out all night. He would call to ask where she was and make sure she was safe, but she would always say coldly, "Mind your own business." After that, Kwame never cared about Amina again. He no longer cared where she went, who she was with, or how long she would be back. Just as Kwame no longer cared about Amina, he completely deleted all her information, and she no longer needed to ask him because she didn't have that right. After cutting off contact with Amina Dlamini, Kwame began to travel around. Life is short. He had wasted 3 years, so he had to make good use of the remaining days. Half a month later, Kwame went out to have fun as usual, but was unfortunately blocked at the door by Amina Dlamini. Her cheeks were slightly sunken, her eyes were heavily covered with dark circles, and she looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept for several days. She was completely different from before, and she was so attractive. "Do you know that I have been looking for you for a long time?" said Amina Dlamini. Amina Dlamini's temper has softened a lot, but Kwame Nkrumah can still feel the arrogance and disdain emanating from her bones. Amina seemed to think that she should always be in control, and Kwame could only stay in her house and become one of her many men. If he chose to leave, it would be unfaithful to her, and her willingness to come back to him was already a great gift, which was not given to other men. Amina felt that since Kwame was favored by her, he should not act unreasonably but should admit his mistakes and kneel in front of her like a dog and beg for her forgiveness as he did before. All this is bullshit. Miss, is this unnecessary?" Kwame spread his hands, smiled, and pushed Amina away. "Sorry, I have a friend party today. I won't disturb you. Please go on." "Kwame, how long are you going to keep making trouble? My patience has its limits." Amina roared. "Miss, my patience has its limits." Kwame looked down at his watch. "You're wasting my time." Amina Dlamini stood there in a daze. Her eyes were dull and full of disbelief. Kwame thought she looked ridiculous at the moment. He walked around her and walked out the door. After taking a few steps, Amina collapsed and shouted, "Isn't it just to celebrate Ziri Kofi's birthday? Is it that serious? I chased you from far away and told you to go home. What else do you want? Kwame, you licked me before, worse than a dog, and now you have the nerve to do it, right? Look at yourself. You were just a plaything at best, and you dare to confront me." She was anxious, and her voice was full of anger. Kwame ignored Amina and let her vent wildly, as if what she said just now was just a fart. He heard her high heels clacking on the floor, but he didn't turn around. According to the address sent by his old classmate, Kwame came to a quaint restaurant. "Hey, old classmate, long time no see. You have become much more refined," Oluwazi and Adebayo said jokingly. Kwame cupped his hands and smiled in response. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, the reunion was like opening a box of conversation with endless topics to talk about. "Why hasn't Nkrumah come yet?" Oluwazi suddenly asked. "Nkrumah, this name Kwame is very familiar with. However, when I heard this name again, it felt a little strange. I haven't seen her for a long time." Nkrumah was Kwame's deskmate. She had excellent grades and was a school beauty. When he was in high school, Kwame, relying on his academic foundation in junior high school, hung out with senior students from other schools for a year or two. It was not until the second semester of the second year of high school, after the midterm exam, that the class rearranged seats based on grades. As the top student in her grade, Nkrumah had the right of first choice. She could not only choose her seat, but also her deskmate. She chose Kwame without hesitation. Why? Nkrumah said that Kwame lowered the class average. She said that Kwame lacked a sense of class honor. She said that starting today, she would tutor Kwame. Since then, Kwame often did exercises with Nkrumah after school. Over time, the innocent and throbbing flower in his heart quietly blossomed. One time, Kwame and Nkrumah were tutoring as usual, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone through the window onto her hair, reflecting her profile tenderly and gently. Kwame reached out and tucked the fallen hair behind her ears. Nkrumah was stunned. Nkrumah was also stunned. The classroom was filled with the sound of their rapid breathing, and the air was filled with the scent of gardenias, which was the scent of Nkrumah's clothes. Nkrumah came back to her senses, looked into Kwame's eyes, and whispered, "Does it look good?" At that moment, Kwame Nkrumah felt that everything in front of him was so beautiful that he couldn't take his eyes off it. Nkrumah stood in the sunset, smiling softly and brightly. For a teenager, that kind of throbbing came easily and violently, almost swallowing him up. But Kwame was too timid. Faced with the heartbeat, he did not respond, but just turned around and ran away. The next day, the cram school went on as usual. Neither of them mentioned what happened yesterday, as if nothing had happened. The same thing happened on the third day. The same thing happened on the fourth day. Just like that, the unspoken response and emotion sank to the bottom of the water like a pebble, without causing any ripples. It was not until the second semester of his senior year that Kwame, with his tenacity, rushed all the way from the bottom of the grade to the front. That day he ran to Nia with joy, wanting to share this hard-earned achievement as soon as possible. However, What she ran into was the popular boy from the next class, the recognized class hunk in the school, who was confessing his love to Nia. Kwame Nkrumah? Nia saw him. Kwame Nkrumah stood there in a daze, his heart tightened, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. Kwame Nkrumah never thought that he looked worse than that man, and his family might even be better off, but there was one thing he could never compare to, and that was exactly where his deepest inferiority complex came from. Kwame Nkrumah used to be a lazy guy who spent his days in a daze. And what about the class flower? He is gentle and polite, excellent in academics, and has a reassuring temperament. A girl like Nia may be more suitable for a boy like that. As Nia watched, Kwame turned and left. Soon after, rumors began to circulate in the class that Nia was dating the class hunk. Kwame took the initiative to apply for a seat change, and soon after, he was sent by his father to study abroad in Cape Town, South Africa. Since then, the two have lost contact. Until now, 7 years have passed. I don't know if Nia Kamara and that kid from class 2 are still together. Oluwaseun Adebayo said while chewing peanuts and reminiscing. Oh, it's been 7 years, and people have changed. Another old classmate waved his hand, drank a glass of wine, and spoke with some emotion in his tone. Kwame smiled bitterly and raised his glass to take a sip. As he was talking, the door of the box was pushed open with a creaky sound, and a gentle and crisp voice came from the door. Sorry everyone, I'm late. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, but Kwame didn't dare to look back. He knew that the voice was Nia's. Hey, our school beauty is here. Oluwaseun joked, then patted the chair next to Kwame. Come, sit here, next to your desk mate. Nia sat down with a natural smile and greeted Kwame. Kwame, long time no see. She was still as charming as ever, with a pair of clear eyes under her long eyelashes, rosy cheeks, and lips still small and soft. Kwame had 1,000 words in his heart, but in the end it just turned into a simple, long time no see. Halfway through the meal, Oluwaseun suddenly asked Kwame if he was married. Kwame glanced at Nia subconsciously and opened his lips, but couldn't finish his words. Oluwaseun did not give up and continued to question whether Kwame had a mistress and was unwilling to introduce his wife to everyone. Kwame waved his hands quickly, but he didn't know how to explain it clearly. Just then, the door of the box was pushed open again, and Kwame looked in the direction of the voice. The person who came was Amina Dlamini. Who is the student? Oluwaseun scratched his head, a little confused. Why don't I remember? Miss, did you go to the wrong room? Amina glanced coldly at Nia, who was sitting next to Kwame, and said in a calm but somewhat oppressive tone, I'll take Kwame home. For a moment, the atmosphere in the box froze. Everyone showed a look of surprise. Only Nia seemed to have known about Amina's existence. Her expression was calm, but revealed a hint of sadness. Kwame, you were so unkind. Oluwaseun smiled and patted him. If sister-in-law hadn't come, we wouldn't have known that you were married a long time ago. Then he looked at Amina. Sister-in-law, since you are here, why don't you sit down and chat with us? Amina was silent for a few seconds, then walked to Nia and said in a calm but unyielding tone, Excuse me, can I sit here? I want to sit next to my husband. Nia Kamara clenched her fists, then reluctantly opened them. Nia tried to stand up, but Kwame Nkrumah held her shoulders and pinned her firmly to the chair. Just sit here and don't move, Kwame said softly. He stood up and turned to Amina Dlamini with a polite smile. Miss, I am single at the moment. Maybe I recognized the wrong person. The others ate the melon in silence. Amina Dlamini felt embarrassed and said with a red face, Kwame Nkrumah, don't go too far. Kwame sighed and admitted, we are divorced. Amina Dlamini, stop bothering me and let yourself go. Amina's face turned ugly. She glanced at Nia Kamara again and suddenly looked lost. Kwame, I was wrong. Please come home with me. Please. I've already said that we're divorced and have nothing to do with each other. Kwame said calmly, Amina, if you're still sensible, please go back and stop making trouble. Otherwise, I'm going to call the police. Amina was very unconvinced, but she was a well-known person after all, so she didn't lose her temper on the spot. I'll wait for you at your house. She said this and left. The conversation between Kwame and Amina made the students present realize that there seemed to be some unknown entanglement between the two, so they all tacitly kept silent about Amina. Apart from this episode, the party went smoothly. After the meeting, Kwame drove Nia Kamara home. The two did not say a word during the whole process in the car. Kwame would occasionally glance at Nia while waiting for the red light, but she seemed not to notice. Arriving at Nia's house, Kwame opened the car door and Nia nodded to him. Thank you. I'm glad to see you today. Me too, Kwame said. He watched Nia go home, and when he was about to get back in the car, Nia suddenly turned around and called him. You and Miss Amina? Nia hesitated. I have nothing to do with her. I'm single now, Kwame repeated. Nia suddenly grinned. I'm single too. Kwame nodded, and watched her go home before leaving. However, when Kwame returned home, he saw Amina squatting at his doorstep like a cat in distress. He then remembered that Amina did not have his house key. Kwame. Amina walked towards him happily when she saw him, then stretched out her arms as if to welcome him. I want you to hug me. Kwame pushed Amina away. Don't do that. Say whatever you want to say now, all at once. Once you've said it, don't meet again. Amina was stunned for a moment, then smiled self-deprecatingly. Just because I went to Zuri Kofi's house and missed your birthday, are you going to retaliate against me like this? You think too much. Kwame responded firmly. Amina, not everyone is as childish as you. Why? Amina started to cry. If you think you can't accept me keeping someone else outside, you can tell me and I won't do it anymore. I will just stay with you, okay? Amina hurriedly wiped away her tears with her sleeves and humbly pulled Kwame's clothes. Kwame, please forgive me. I really know I was wrong. Kwame broke away from her hand. For so many years, Amina had always been a frivolous, strong woman in his mind. Except for the time when she cried because her boyfriend dumped her, he had never seen her cry. Until today, when he saw her crying, he actually felt a little bit sorry. Kwame took out some papers from the car and handed them to her. Wipe your tears and go back early tonight. I don't want it. Amina reached out and knocked the tissue out of his hand. I want you to be with me every moment. Kwame, I finally got married to you. Even if we're divorced now, we can still get a new marriage certificate, right? Let's reconcile. No one should hurt each other anymore. And we can live a good life, okay? Kwame Nkrumah looked at Amina Dlamini with a hint of sarcasm in his heart. She said that it was hard for her to marry him. But in his opinion, she didn't have to work hard at all. It was very easy for her. If this was said 3 years ago when they just got married, Kwame might have hesitated or even softened his heart. But 3 years have passed. For 3 whole years, Amina has never restrained herself, still flirting with men and making love everywhere. And now, she actually said that she wanted to forget the past and start over? Kwame thought this was an international joke. He looked at her coldly, but his tone was unusually calm. Amina, there is no possibility between us. I sincerely wish you and Zuri Kofi a long and happy life together. The makeup on Amina's face had been washed away by her tears, and she looked extremely embarrassed. At that moment, she was just like the girl who was ruthlessly dumped by her boyfriend 7 years ago. That night, Amina, with tears on her face, stumbled into the bar opened by Kwame. At that time, Kwame had just been bound to the system. Amina was drunk and mistook him for a bartender. Amina said drunkenly that Kwame was the most handsome gigolo she had ever seen, and said she wanted to keep him. Kwame was already upset, so he didn't rush to clarify and took Amina upstairs. But as soon as they entered the room, Amina started to take off her clothes. Kwame was so scared that he quickly grabbed her and hurriedly helped her put them on. Ms. Dlamini, Kwame said at the time, smiling. How about we try something else? Amina leaned on the sofa. Her eyes were blurry, but she still had that frivolous and uninhibited spirit. How do we play? Kwame stared at her and said seriously, It's my turn to cover you. Listen to me. Amina raised her eyebrows and asked teasingly, You like role-playing? Do you have clothes? Do you have props? Kwame shook his head. None of them. Then what do you want me to listen to? She asked with half-closed eyes. Kwame said softly, Lean on my arms and cry. Don't worry, I have poor hearing and poor eyesight. Kwame thought she would call him crazy, but Amina just laughed, and as she laughed, she really started crying. After that night, Amina said she wanted to date Kwame. Kwame knew that Amina was just impulsive and said those harsh words to anger her ex-boyfriend, but it just suited his mind. So Kwame followed the system's instructions, step by step, getting closer to Amina until they got married, and after 3 years, he completed the mission and finally gained his freedom. Amina desperately wiped the tears from her face, her tone almost pleading. We really still have a chance, Kwame. You have always liked me, right? You love me, I love you, and that's enough. I will delete Zuri, and we will start over in another place, okay? You also don't contact Nia Kamara anymore. We will start over dash. Kwame didn't listen anymore and just said lightly, Don't dream. After that, he turned and left, returned home, locked the door tightly, and didn't leave a word. It rained heavily in Lagos at night. Kwame was lying on the bed alone. The sound of rain hitting the window was clear and rhythmic. Kwame suddenly thought of the night when Zuri kicked him out of the house. At that time, he was like a piece of debris kicked out at random, standing in the rain all night. But now, Kwame turned over gently, knowing full well that something like that would never happen again. The next morning, Kwame got up and went to the yard to water the flowers and plants. As soon as he opened the door, Kwame saw Amina curled up at the door, soaking wet and unconscious. She actually stayed outside the door all night. Fate, sometimes, really likes to play jokes. Kwame stood there in a daze for a moment, never expecting that Amina would experience the same fate. Kwame crouched down and gently patted Amina's face, trying to wake her up. Amina just hummed softly and didn't respond at all. Kwame touched Amina's forehead, and it was terribly hot. Kwame had no choice but to take out Amina's cell phone from her bag and prepare to contact Zuri to ask him to take her away. But when the phone screen lit up, Kwame was stunned. The lock screen showed his profile while he was sleeping. When did Amina secretly take the photo? Kwame tried to unlock the phone, first entering Amina's birthday. No answer. Then he tried Zuri's birthday. No answer. On instinct, he tried his own birthday. No answer. Amina gently patted Amina's face and whispered, "Wake up. What's your phone password?" Amina buried her face in her arms in a daze, mumbling, 11/29. Kwame paused. 11/29? Wasn't that their wedding day? November 29th. After unlocking the combination lock, Kwame Nkrumah immediately found Zuri Kofi's mobile number and dialed without hesitation. "Is that Zuri? Amina Dlamini is sick and refuses to leave my house. Can you come and pick her up to go to the hospital? I'll send you the location." There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment, and Zuri's voice was a little cold. "Why should I go pick her up?" Kwame was stunned. Zuri's reaction caught him off guard. The boy who was once passionate about Amina had become so cold. He couldn't help but wonder, what happened between these two people? Kwame responded calmly, "Don't you like her? This is a good opportunity to show it." There was silence for a few seconds, and then a sigh came. "Okay, send me the location. I'll come over in a while." Kwame waited for a long time before Zuri came slowly. He didn't say much nonsense, and Kwame didn't say much nonsense either, and directly helped the sick Amina into the car. Zuri sat in the driver's seat, frowning as he looked at Amina in the back seat. He then gave a wry smile. "You're living a comfortable life now, right? You don't lack money, and you don't lack women." Kwame was confused. "What do you mean?" Zuri waved her hand. "Nothing." After seeing them off, Kwame received a WeChat message from Nia Kamara, asking him out for dinner. He stared at the message for a long time, typing and deleting and typing again. His heartbeat was a little chaotic. A minute later, Kwame responded with one word, "Okay." The place where they met was an old restaurant in the north of Lagos. The fried noodles there still tasted familiar, and it was the place they often went to for late-night snacks after remedial classes in high school. Many years have passed, but the restaurant is still there. The seats are still the same, and everything is the same as before. After they exchanged a few pleasantries, Nia suddenly brought up Amina. "Did you divorce her on impulse?" Kwame was stunned. "Why do you ask?" Nia's eyes dimmed. "She called me yesterday and told me not to get in between you two." Kwame, if two people really love each other, they shouldn't give up easily. Kwame frowned. He dressed up to meet Nia today, not to listen to her speak for Amina. "So, is there any relationship between us?" Kwame asked seriously. Nia obviously didn't expect Kwame to ask this. She was stunned. "Kwame, you? Between us?" Kwame repeated. Nia lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "There is no destiny between us." Kwame shook his head gently. "No, I don't like Amina, and you also said you were single. Nia, can we give it a try? I don't want some irrelevant answer like, we are not destined to be together. If you don't like me, leave now, but if you have me in your heart." Kwame's voice was hoarse and dry, as if he was pouring out all the emotions that had been pinned up for a long time. He leaned over and gently kissed Nia's ring finger. "Then I will start pursuing you." They were together, eating, shopping, watching movies. Just like any ordinary couple, they quietly replaced their past immaturity with mature dependence. In the evening, they went to the night market in Yaba, which was their favorite place in high school. They bought a bunch of snacks and were about to leave when they saw a familiar and disheveled figure at the corner of the street, Amina Dlamini. Amina stood under the streetlight. Her hair was messy as if she had just woken up. Her clothes were stained, and she looked sick. Kwame was stunned. Wasn't she sent to the hospital by Zuri? Why was she here? Where did Zuri go? Amina's voice was dry. "Are you and Nia together?" Kwame nodded. "Yes." "What about me? What am I?" Amina asked anxiously. Kwame looked at Amina, his voice cold and emotionless. "Don't reminisce about the past. There is no love between you and me. You have always treated me as a plaything, and I have never really liked you. Let go, and don't humiliate yourself anymore." Amina's eyes turned red and her voice began to tremble. "You really never liked me? Then what are these 3 years?" Kwame didn't respond, just remained silent. Tears welled up in Amina's eyes. "Didn't you tell me to go find Zuri? He doesn't want me anymore. You all don't want me. I'm a complete loser." Kwame sighed. "I'll ask Uncle Duh to pick you up." "I don't want it." Amina suddenly looked at Nia, her eyes filled with jealousy and fatigue. "You won. I planned for so long, but in the end you still won." Amina staggered a few steps, her eyes full of trance. "Kwame, I really regret it." Amina held the necklace Kwame had given her tightly in her hand and approached step by step. Kwame, have you ever loved me? Kwame took Nia's hand and said firmly, I'm sorry, never. Amina murmured, so, the system is real. I pushed you to someone else with my own hands. It's all my fault. She was like a bird that had lost its feathers, helpless and fragile. Amina looked up at Kwame, her eyes almost devoid of hope. Can I hold you for a second? Even for a second. Kwame subconsciously put his arm around Nia's waist. Sorry, I already have a girlfriend. Amina seemed to have anticipated this outcome. She nodded, eyes full of disappointment, and stumbled out of the night market. After that, Kwame never saw Amina again, nor did he hear from her. It wasn't until I was having dinner with several senior executives from a large Nigerian group that someone casually brought up Amina, saying that her family's business had gone bankrupt and had been acquired by someone. Some people say that Amina ran away with a pretty boy who makes a living by his looks. Some say Amina is ill due to alcoholism and is currently receiving treatment in the hospital. Others said that Amina sold her house and went to the countryside to do some small business to make a living. Kwame just smiled and didn't say anything. If Amina really came to him one day, he might help her. But if she never showed up again, that would be fine too. 3 years later, Kwame and Nia Kamara got married. Nia often nestled in Kwame's arms and jokingly asked, Have you really never liked Amina, Dlamini? Kwame always shook his head calmly. Never. This time, Nia asked an extra question. Why did you marry her in the first place? Kwame gently stroked Nia's forehead. Well, it's a long story. Do you want to hear it? Nia nodded, and then, on a sunny afternoon, the two of them lay in the hammock on the balcony, basking in the warm sunlight, and Kwame told her about the wonderful experience he had with the system. They talked for a long time, the sunlight shining through the gauze curtains onto her hair and into Nia's clear eyes. Nia said softly, Kwame, let's have a baby. Extra, from Amina Dlamini's perspective. Amina Dlamini first noticed the man at a high-end bar in Lagos. He was different from those fancy, greasy, and frivolous gigolos around him. The man had gentle eyes and brows, spoke neither servilely nor arrogantly, and his movements revealed a unique calmness and grace. At that moment, she almost impulsively asked him to support her. The man just smiled slightly, neither dodging nor refusing. But when they checked into the room and Amina was about to take off her clothes, he held her hand. He did not continue, but put her clothes on one by one. Cry if you want to. When he said this, his tone was gentle and firm. At that moment, Amina suddenly realized that he was really different from others. He saw through all her disguises, saw her pain from losing love, and even recognized her emotions before she did. She cried in his arms for a long time, so long that she even forgot her original stubbornness. In fact, she didn't want to cry. He was just a man, and there were thousands of men in the world. But his arms were so warm that she couldn't help but let down all her defenses. Later, she proposed to him. At that moment, she didn't even know his name. Strangely, he agreed to her request. They dated all day, and as night fell, she finally learned his name, Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame was so good to Amina that she felt it was unreal. She tried to respond to his kindness, but she knew that she had never seriously considered the future. Whenever Kwame held her in his arms and imagined their married life, Amina would feel a little repulsive. She admitted that her initial request for dating was indeed a bit impulsive, but no one could refuse the beauty in front of her. Because of this, facing Kwame's increasing affection, Amina began to retreat. She was afraid that this relationship would be too heavy, so she quietly returned to her previous indulgent life. She had a lot of fun every night, and she had different little boys around her. She thought Kwame would give up because of this. Unexpectedly, Kwame tolerated everything about Amina, including her philandering and infidelity. Slowly, Amina found that being with him was good. Although the wild flowers outside were beautiful, none of them wrapped her up as gently and affectionately as Kwame. Amina began to no longer reject this relationship, and for a moment, she even thought that if he proposed to her, she might agree. As a result, Kwame really proposed to Amina, and she agreed. On the wedding day, a gigolo came to her crying and begged her not to get married. Amina saw through his motives. He was just afraid of losing her, his cash cow. Amina was about to ask someone to chase him away, but Kwame stopped her. He said, You can talk slowly, there's no rush. I'll wait for you. His tone was so calm that it made people panic, as if he didn't care who she chose. Amina was furious. She didn't understand why Kwame was jealous. So in order to avenge his calmness, she left the gigolo and deliberately spent a night with him in their marriage bed. Kwame was not angry at all. The next day, he gently called Amina to get up as usual and cook porridge for everyone. He even prepared a portion for the pretty boy. Amina was almost mad. Didn't Kwame care? Was he really not jealous at all? She suddenly didn't dare to get close to this man anymore. She was afraid that she would get too involved. So, Amina went to find Zuri Kofi. Zuri was her childhood friend, and they grew up together. She was a few years older than him. She knew he liked her, so she tried to transfer her feelings for Kwame to Zuri. Zuri is timid and cowardly, but he is jealous and cares about Amina. At that moment, she feels the satisfaction of being loved. Amina continued to look for little boys to fill the emptiness in her heart. She thought that only Kwame could really fill that hole, but Kwame no longer cared about her. As time went by, Amina discovered that being with Zuri was pretty good. He had some of Kwame's shadow. Perhaps she could find some alternative warmth from him. Until that day, the appearance of Nkrumah made Amina completely sober. Nia was Kwame's deskmate in high school. Amina had checked her background and knew that she was the closest woman to Kwame. She heard that Nia had been confessed to by the class flower, and that was why she and Kwame drifted apart. Amina asked Nia out and said to her coldly, "Kwame and I are already married, and we have a good relationship. I advise you not to be ungrateful, or you will suffer the consequences." Nia lowered her head and smiled. "If you really love each other, then I wish you to grow old together. Don't worry, I just want to reminisce about the past. Since you say so, I will leave." Nia really hasn't appeared since then. But Amina did not stop. She still looked for pleasure everywhere and ran to Zuri from time to time, trying to use all this to stimulate Kwame. Until that day, Kwame said to Amina, "Let's get a divorce." Amina panicked. She didn't want to leave, but she couldn't bring herself to ask Kwame for help. So she argued and insulted him, trying to keep him by arguing. But Amina failed. Kwame left her in the end. Amina went to Zuri to confide in him, but got an even crueler answer. Zuri said, "It's only a matter of time." Amina asked him why, but Zuri told her that Kwame was bound by the system. The system's task was to capture her and marry her for 3 years before being free, otherwise he would die. Amina couldn't believe it. What shocked her even more was that Zuri also had a system. His mission was to interfere with her marriage to Kwame. As long as they divorced, he would be free. Amina almost collapsed. The two closest men approached her with a purpose. She just felt ridiculous. Amina and Zuri had a big argument, and she responded coldly to his request. "Fuck you. You are making a fool of me, and you still want money?" The money was either shared by Kwame and her, or it was her, Amina Dlamini herself. Amina rushed to Kwame's class reunion to disrupt it, and waited downstairs for the whole night. She thought that if she looked miserable and pitiful enough, he would soften his heart and accept her again. But even when Amina was in a coma with a high fever, Kwame just calmly called Zuri to pick her up. At that moment, she understood that Kwame had really let her go. Amina went to see Kwame for the last time. She was disheveled and haggard, trying to gain some sympathy. "I don't ask for anything else. I just want you to hug me," she said. But Kwame didn't even agree to this request. He put his arm around Nkrumah's waist and whispered, "I have a girlfriend now." At that moment, Amina finally understood that she had completely lost Kwame Nkrumah.